how to really enjoy your children and love being a parent. I talked to my husband, my children's father, and asked him, what do I begin with? How do I really start this off? And instantly it was a promise, a beautiful principle that I had just been talking to him about and recorded something else. But it is, we love him because he first loved us. That's really the foundation of everything. We learn to love because he's loved us. And as a parent, as a mother specifically, is that it's the love that we give our children and we invest into our children that helps us to set up their whole world, because we're an ambassador. You know, it even says that in that we are his ambassadors. And so when we love our children or love anyone, and we don't tap into our own selfish, self-centered love, meaning I'm going to love, but I want you to give it back. I expect things in order, but it's totally unconditional. You know, the other foundationals, while we were yet sinners, he died for us. So obviously, the love that he has for us is not conditional in one way or another. It is that you constantly and forever are loving. And when we tap into his love and we love our children with the love that we get from him, then it's a very unpolluted, a very pure love. And I really believe that that is actually built in to the mother, that she loves her children in that way. And you hear it from anyone, any mother, whether she's a Christian or a believer or not, that there is this instinctive love. Now, we know that there's sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it happens because there's been a difficult birth or there's some other trauma that's happened while you were pregnant or during the birthing process or the labor or any number of things. Sometimes, and one of the reasons I really believe so much in doing everything in a natural sense, the way God intended it, to trust him for, is because you want to make sure that that birthing process, whether there's drugs or the drop in hormones or not going as planned, you want to make sure that everything for this new life and your experience as the mother is exactly what he had planned. But even when it's not, even when it doesn't go as planned, we can always go to him and he can fix anything. Nothing is impossible with him. So having that instinct of loving your child, if you don't have that, then you ask him for that love. It says that he turns the heart of kings. We saw that he turned the heart of Pharaoh, turning hearts away. He absolutely can give you a love that is even far beyond what comes naturally, if that's something that you lack. So first of all, we have to love our children, and we need to love them with the love that we have been given and what we continue to have. And that's what instills in us that first beginnings where you just love that child. It's through touch, it's through affection, it's through kissing, it's through talking about that child to others, the excitement. Sometimes a mother is very anticipating that birth, but once that child is born, there's trials. Like with every blessing comes a trial. And what's even worse now is that there are so many people talking about the problems of having children, the burden, the responsibility. They overthink it. so much. Getting away from all of that is the best advice from a mother of 7, grandmother to 10, and somebody who loves babies, loves to mother any child. And I love to mother the mothers, and that's what I'm doing here with each of you that are listening. I'm going to mother the mothers, or the soon-to-be mothers, because even from the earliest age, it's just now there's just like never before an onslaught of not even having children because they're so burdensome. And when you talk like that about your child or any children, there's life in those words. And you know how wonderful it is when you hear loving tones and you see love in the eyes of someone else, how wonderful it makes you feel. Well, the opposite is also true, right? And so if you have that anger or frustration, and maybe it's not even at the child who can't even help themselves, let me just give you some on kind of bookends. My first child was the perfect baby, absolutely perfect. Everything, well, almost everything that I dreamed of. When my son was born, he was happy. He rarely slept, so that was a challenge. But he was always happy. He was always happy, laughing, smiling, good-natured. He nursed well. I wanted to breastfeed. I didn't know anything about that, and maybe in this series that I'll be sharing about, breastfeeding your baby. But everything was perfect. The only thing that he wasn't interested in is he didn't want to hold my hand. I envisioned holding his hand while I drove. Yes, back in those days, they had the car seats. Not everybody even put babies in car seats, believe it or not. But you could have it in the front seat. So I envisioned holding his hand. I envisioned this baby putting his head down and resting on my shoulder. Didn't happen. Nevertheless, because God says to be fruitful and multiply, I did multiply. So by baby 3, I had the most affectionate, overly affectionate little boy who wanted to hold my hand and love. So if your first baby didn't have that, you're lacking in anything, just talk to the Creator. Your husband is your maker, so talk to him about that. And so let me get off. Perfect child, happy from birth. On the other end, after, 10 pregnancies, my 7th child being born, from the moment she was born, she cried for an entire hour without stopping. And the only thing that stopped her from crying is when her siblings all came. I had planned a home birth, ended up having the baby in the hospital. But when they came in and started talking in their excitement, she stopped, she opened her eyes wide, and she was happy. Though that baby, when she got home, she was one that was up all night crying. And my husband said, why don't you just put her somewhere and let her cry? Because there's no way that it's not helping. Nothing's helping. So why? But I said, even if she doesn't stop crying, I'm not going to abandon her. Because one of the other parts about enjoying your children and love being a parent is that I parent in the same way and try and do it as close to how our Heavenly Father parents us as children of God. And that's how I measure and what I do, and I try and assimilate as closely to what He does. And I know that He does not abandon us. We may not feel Him. We may not acknowledge Him. We may not even realize because we're so frantic, like my youngest one. She didn't really realize I was there. I was holding her. I was comforting her, and I was never going to abandon her let her cry on her own, just like my Heavenly Father would never abandon me. So I hope that this will lay a perfect foundation to how to really enjoy your children. They're wonderful. And to love being a parent. And the only reason I don't say love being a mother, because you'll see that we are going to, in this series, talk about how He fathers us, He parents us as children of God. And so that's a golden thread that is running through all of that should follow this. So if you have enjoyed this, talk to your husband about it or your children's father, and then ask him, who could I share this with? And when you do, then talk about it, because there's no better way to really put things in your heart, to remember things, than to share them with others, to talk about it. And I'm just looking forward to this whole series, and I hope you are